made it now, you're never gonna make it. 17 people in the dark tonight. You see some familiar faces behind the cellular lights. Ooh.
Hello everybody, this is Robert Gordon and I'm from Selma, Alabama. But we're in Old Cahawba, Alabama right now, first state capital of Alabama. There's not a whole lot left here. These were old slave quarters, just so you'll know where we're at. This, I don't know, this is like 15 years ago. And Jean Martin, our city council woman, asked me to come down here and talk to the guy that was living here. They wanted to buy all this land that you can't see. It's in front of this house. And the state of Alabama wanted to buy it. So I told Jean, I said, yeah, sure, I'll come down here. Because I'd forgotten George's name, and I had to call Linda Derry, who is over Old Cahawba. And she would come out to visit George to talk to him about selling his land. And she said he wanted to show her something one time. And now the guy's nuts, but he still knew how to do things. And he wanted her to come in, and they walked down the hall behind me and went in the kitchen, and Linda looked up on the wall, and there was about 20 pictures of herself where George had slipped through these woods and taken pictures of her. And he had them pasted up there on the wall. And Linda was looking at that and looking at him, and I mean, this guy was a giant. And Linda's just little bitty. And she said, George, I've got to get back. She said he grunted at her, and she got out of here real quick. His mama, when we were 16, this dirt road in front of this place, you never, ever came out here. You never, she would shoot at you, and you just didn't come out here at night at all. She was a scary woman. But he used to run around in this yard out here. He used to run around naked all the time, if you can imagine this, but he did. He would throw his clothes, the river's just right over there, and he'd throw all his clothes in the river. The sheriff would have to bring him more. And so I got my old buddies, Brad and Will, to come with me. And I don't remember how I knew this, but we knew, I heard the guy living here liked to drink a lot of beer. So we bought 2.5 cases of beer and started out down here. We got here, we actually pulled up right where the cameras are. And we got out. Now this place was all overgrown. I mean, it looked real bad. So I go up to the door and beat on the door, and this guy came to the door, and he's probably the biggest man I've ever seen. 6'8", 400 and something pounds, and he wasn't fat either. I mean, he was big. And I go, Brad and Will stepped back when he came to the door, because I mean, he looked like a monster. Overalls, everything. Just think about Deliverance, and you got a good idea here. So I told him, I said, you know, I'm Robert Gordon. I wanted to see if you wanted to sell this land. So the guy comes out and sits right where I'm sitting right now. And this guy is a monster. I mean, he's big. He is big. And I'm sitting right to my left here, and I go, his name's George. And I go, George, would you like a beer? And he goes, he talks, but he would grunt a lot. He'd grunt. And I said, Will, go get him a beer. And so we all got beers, and Will gave him the beer, and he put his hand around it. And you couldn't see the beer can. And he brought it up to his lips, And we're all sitting there looking at him because, I mean, his eyeballs are big. This guy's so big. And he puts it up to his lips, and then, this is no kidding, 3 or 4 seconds, it's gone. It's gone. He just slings it out there, and I was going, Will, get him another one. Get him another one. And I kept trying to talk to him, telling him about all the money he could get. He would just turn around and look at me. And we kept on and on and on, and so we were drinking too. It was 2.5 cases, and we went through them. And he's still sitting here, and he's going, well, I'm just not sure. So we were close to running out of beer, so Will goes to the shot house and buys another case. And we're sitting here, and the guy is killing them. He had to have drank over 2 cases of beer. And then he was really grunting. And so I kept going, well, what do you think? And then I drank about 7 or 8. So I started, of course, lying to him, telling him that right over there, the state would probably build him a nice little house where he could stay and everything, and he wouldn't have to live in this old broken down slave quarters, which I actually really like. We all kind of got in front of him looking at him, and I don't know if he saw us or not, because he was getting more nuts. And finally I sat down and just went, George, now the state really wants to buy the land, and you can be a rich man from now on. And he just turned around and looked at me. He grunted extra loud and just fell back on this porch here. And we just all got up here on the porch and looked at him. So I looked at Brad and Will, and I said, well, I guess he's not gonna be selling it today, and there's a buzzard flying over us. That is some kind of bad hoodoo, which we still have down here. Brad and Will grabbed a leg, and I got his arms. And we took him right behind me in this door. We dumped him down, and the house shook when he hit the floor. And we just kind of cleaned up all the beer cans and left. And the next day I woke up, and I had a hangover, I did. And Miss Martin was calling me. And was going, Robert, what, did he make up his mind? Is he gonna sell? And all I goes, Gene, we made progress with him. Now the story goes on. Years went by. He finally sold all this property to the state. It was about 170 acres of nice land here. A friend of mine, Dr. Bo Johnson, we're at the Harmony Club, and some girl was here from Sweden, and she wanted to see a historical place, so we took her out here to Old Cahawba. And we came up here and looked around, and we got back in the car right out there on that dirt road, and we look out in the woods. This 8 or 9 years had gone by since I'd talked to George, and there is George in those woods right over there, flitting from tree to tree down this dirt road. And I went, Bo, look. And Bo stopped, and the girl's going, get me the hell out of here. So, and George had something in his hand. We didn't know what it was. We couldn't see what it was because his hand is so big, like twice as big as mine. And it could have been a bomb. Who knows? He was so nuts. Anyway, Bo stopped the car. The girl is about to wee-wee. She is so scared. And I'm laughing. And Bo said, how are you doing? And George looked at Bo and goes, not you. And he stuck his arm over across Bo, and he had an apple. And he was giving it to the girl. And she took it. Anyway, it had a happy ending. Well, after George finally sold this place, which I would actually like to own it, they wouldn't let him live here, so he moved right across the road over here in a little shack, in a really bad little shack. I don't even think it didn't have running water, electricity, anything. And I guess about 5 or 6 years after that, they found him in there dead. And I don't know where he's buried. I always wondered.